Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AI Cookbook Show, live from Bregenz in Austria. And today we're going to talk about energy. We're going to talk about how Google, or why Google bought an energy company, why this is important, what are the restrictions a bit, and why this is leading to higher energy prices only in certain parts of the world. Not the entire world is seeing an energy increase. Only parts of the world are seeing an energy increase because of the use of AI. And who is using AI? Well, you are using AI. So essentially, you're responsible for a growth of energy consumption, and you're inherently responsible for companies like Google and Microsoft buying energy companies and becoming vertical integrators of energy. And partly the reason because of this is we are seeing the biggest energy need since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And now companies such as Google, Microsoft, Meta, etc., what can they do? They can wait for energy. They can wait to be, connected to the grid, which takes anywhere between 5 to 10 years. Hi, I want to build a new data center. For sure, we can connect you in 5 to 10 years because our grid is not ready. So what are they doing? Well, they will build their own energy companies. And let's look into this and what this means for you and your business. So yeah, action, let's go.
Flip the switch, the circuit's live. Digital dreams, they thrive and strive. Recipes coded to feed your mind, serving knowledge of the AI kind. Welcome to the AI Cookbook Show, where the data streams and the insights flow. Tune in slow, let the rhythm grow. For every soul in the know and those who don't.
Okay, so why would Google spend $4.5 billion cash to buy an energy company? It's wild. I mean, we spoke about Meta yesterday that is buying Manus for $2.5 billion. Yet Google is buying for $4.5 billion an energy company. Let's talk about that AI tax that we see here. What's this AI tax? So when you build a data center, and now I'm excited, you can see I'm standing up and when I'm sitting up. So when you build a data center, you can't just build a data center anywhere, Let me give you an example. I used to do an internship at Salzburger Aluminium, that is an aluminium company. And normally these aluminium smelters, they're built in the middle of nowhere, like in Iceland, close to the polar regions, or in Oman, in the desert. Why? Because over there, they can get very, very cheap energy. Now, you could say the same with data centers. Well, if we're building new data centers, why don't we just build them anywhere? But that's the problem. You can't. You have to build data centers close to a hub, close to where there are lots of fiber optic cables, so that the latency is when you press on the button to start sending data until it's actually sent, there are a few milliseconds that are passing, and this latency is compounding. Therefore, you need to build data centers close to other data centers. And obviously, you need electricity for this. Now, the extreme of this is in the US, in a region close to, I think, Illinois. I think it's Virginia, Illinois, or New Jersey. I'm not quite sure. Hey, they had an electricity spike in pricing of nearly 300% in 5 years. Now, do you understand this? This is not your electricity. In Europe, we're bitching when our electricity prices go up by 5% because of the conflict in the Ukraine, or 10%. No, we're talking about nearly 300%. And now, the thing is, this is resulting for these people who live there, but not only for them, for everybody, in a sort of AI tax. This AI tax is millions of households and businesses are paying right now, whether they use AI or not, because their electricity bill is going up. This is wild. It's wild. The key point is the cost of powering AI is not only paid by big tech alone. it's being socialized across the entire ratepayer base. Everybody, even the 80-year-old person who has never ever used AI, who's blind, is paying for this through the rising energy costs. Now, this you could say, no, this is a problem in the US. No, this is a problem in pretty much every single country in the world. And this is because the energy needed by data centers is leading to the biggest jump in energy need since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so let's try to put that a bit into context, right? Now you could say, oh, I knew it. AI needs a lot of energy. But currently not yet. Currently not yet. Data centers are not yet big power consumers. But you must understand, in a country, there's not a lot of energy. The grid is more or less saturated, more or less. So if you go and you say, you know, I'm building a new data center, as I said, in the region of Frankfurt, for example, the German government will say, oh, that's very good, go and talk to the energy companies. And the energy companies will say, great, we can build capacity for you in the next 7 to 10 years. Now, data centers can't wait. All these companies need data centers like hell. So they're not going to wait for, 7 to 10 years till they get energy. They need to build it themselves, or they need to buy it themselves. But to put things a bit in perspective, as you can see here, actually data centers are not such big users for now of energy. As an example, let's take, for example, let's say data centers are using, and I know that these numbers are a bit difficult always, anywhere between 400 to 500,000, 400 to 500 terawatts of energy. Okay, how much is that? Okay, let's compare it, for example, to aluminium. So aluminium, the production of aluminium, needs twice the amount of energy. Now you could say, you see, hey, it's using quite a lot. No, sorry. The problem with aluminium is the production of aluminium is more or less stagnant. So the energy that aluminium companies need is more or less the same and will increase very little over the next few years. The problem you have with data centers is everybody's buying data centers. So the growth of data centers will continue 10, 15% a year. And that's, again, compounding. And other industries which need even more energy, for example, like steel and cement, they are also flat. So the problem is not really the absolute energy used today. The problem is that the rate of change, which is the derivative, how much more is coming, is much higher. And that's going to put pressure where? Not on the farmers in the middle of nowhere in your country, but on the urban centers. Because the data centers need to be placed in urban centers, such as suburbs of Washington, D.C., where the poor people who are sitting there, who are maybe not so poor, are seeing rising energy costs. Okay, let's talk about something very interesting. So let's talk about this thing called the 5-alarm fire for the grid, which was kind of a wake-up call for the US, but also for the rest of the world. Because remember, in AI, what happens in the US is a bit, we foresee this will happen in the rest of the world because they're always a bit further ahead than all the rest of us. So in July 2024, in Northern Virginia, and remember, in Northern Virginia, there are lots of data centers. There was just a lightning strike on a high voltage transmission line. And that can happen. It's not an issue. But there was a change in voltage that the data centers around thought, oh, there's no more electricity. So what happened is they switched to backup power. And the moment they switch to backup power, they disconnect from the grid. 60 data centers at the same time did that. And 60 data centers together is 1.5 gigawatt of energy. And that's more or less the entire energy that, for example, a city like Philadelphia would need. in milliseconds. Now you can imagine what that does to an entire power grid, because power grids are not designed to handle such huge fluctuations going offline, online. But data centers need a lot of power, and they're built in a very, very resilient way that if there's no electricity, boom, they switch on to power, backup power. That's not an issue. And this showed, at least in the US, the regulators that, my God, we have a huge problem with grid reliability if we keep on building more data centers. Why? So, I love trashing public institutions. Now, not only the EU, this is now globally, our energy grid in the entire world is not built for AI. I give you an example. When you build let's say a new smelter for aluminium, this is a 10 to 20 year project, or let's say a 10-year project. So you already tell now energy companies, I'm going to build this, I'm going to get a building permit, this is how long it's going to take, and in 5 to 10 years, I will need so much energy. So the energy companies can calculate for this. But we know that as a result of rapid AI growth, this is not the case with AI. With AI, if we zoom into what's happening, we will see that companies are building one data center after another. There is no outlook to even what's going to happen in the next 5 years, maybe the next 2 years. So such a fire or a reliability problem, like the one that we saw in Northern Virginia, shows us that the grids nowadays are not built for AI. Okay, so the grids are not built for AI, Malcolm. So what the hell? I mean, what can we do? And what's the huge problem here? Well, the huge problem is the grids are not built for AI, and governments are not able to catch up. Let's take Ireland. Ireland is a very, very, very simple one. And Ireland is it's nice to analyze Ireland because Ireland is an island, so their grid is a bit disconnected from the rest of the world. And in Ireland, just the data centers consume 22% of the entire national electricity. Yeah, 22 is a fifth. It's not so much. No. It's more than all urban households combined. That's wild. Now, because of this, the government or the grid operator imposed a moratorium. They said, okay, finished. You're not allowed to build new data centers. Forget it. Why? Because they're afraid of blackouts. They're afraid of rolling blackouts. So what they then said is, they said, look here, if you want, you need to supply your own energy. And they didn't say it in this word. You know how they said it? In Europe, they said, okay, if you want, you need to do it, but you need to provide clean energy. So what did Microsoft do in Ireland? Well, they built their own power plant. I think it's a gas power plant or something like this. So they just went and they bypassed it and just built their own gas power plant to power the energy data centers. It's wild because Microsoft in like a few years wants to be carbon neutral. But wait, let me go and build energy plants. Because there's no way for them to supply energy from the grid. Even in Germany, you have the company called Cyrus One. They're also building their own fossil power plants in Germany for Frankfurt. And in other smaller states like Singapore and Amsterdam, etc., they've also imposed moratoria. They are not able to let data centers being built anymore. It's finished. And this slide says it all. Now, what do we see here? We see that kind of like there's an old model, which is the public grid on the left, and on the right side, there's a tech grid. There's a new model. What is this? Well, tech companies, because of all these problems that we spoke about, they're like, okay, forget it. We're just going to build or buy our own energy companies. Before, there was this thing called the PPA. A PPA is a power purchase agreement, Like you and I sign that you will give me power, which doesn't mean they have it. They say, you will give me power whenever I need it in 5 to 10 years. But a PPA is not binding. A PPA is, we will hopefully give you power when we will have it. So the new strategy is for companies, tech companies especially, to bypass these problems that you see here in red. Congestion of the electric grid. Okay, fine. I will build my data center next to a power plant that I own. So tech companies are moving from being a passive customer to becoming active grid architects. Are they allowed to do that? Well, it seems they are, and it seems they're doing this. I don't know if you know that Microsoft signed a deal, I think a 20-year-long deal with 3 Mile Island in the US. For those who don't know it, 3 Mile Island is more or less the Chernobyl of the US. It's as though you would see in the news, Microsoft, now that the war is finished in the Ukraine, Microsoft went to Chernobyl and said, we're going to sign a 20-year-long deal with Chernobyl to get electricity from Chernobyl. Would any media in the world accept this? But with 3 Mile Island, and because it's Microsoft, and because on paper it helps everybody, it's okay. And not only this, Amazon will build nuclear power plants, like they're called small reactor nuclear power plants, etc. So big tech, what they're having to do, they're having to become their own energy operator. So they're becoming verticalized AI and energy companies. And you know, it's so funny because I worked in oil and gas for 10 years in Africa, in Europe, wherever, you know, and when I used to, whatever, I mean, I'm just saying it. So I used to go to a bar before I was married, and then there was a friendly lady, and I used to talk to her, and then she said, oh, where'd you work? And then I used to say, oh, in oil and gas. And they used to give you the worst look in the world, as though you said, I don't know, I'm a spy that poisons people. Like, So I moved into tech. And really, that's partly one of the reasons we moved into tech is I did my MBA to switch into pharma. And afterwards, after 3 years in pharma, I said, okay, we're going to move into tech. And tech is clean. Tech is the cloud. But now tech is becoming energy companies. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Now, what type of energy are they buying? Because this is now really interesting. So what type of energy are they buying? Okay, Google is buying a power plant, but they're not only buying a power plant. They're buying a company called Intersect Power. And Intersect Power is carbon-free energy. How do you do that? Well, it's a company that has lots of solar panels, and the electricity goes into batteries, and they build their data center right next to the solar panels. With this, what are they doing is they're bypassing the energy grid and just sitting on their own energy highway. What do they want to do? Well, they want to build with them a capacity of 10 gigawatt in the next 5 years. No, not in the next 5, in the next 2 or 3 years. Wait, how much is 10 gigawatt? Well, 10 gigawatt is the equivalent of 20 Hoover dams. Have you seen the pictures of the Hoover Dam? Have you seen how big that thing is? That's the equivalent of 20 Hoover dams. So they co-locate the data centers behind the new power plants. They create a behind-the-meter private energy grid, and they are left alone. But if you ask me, what's happening is they're building a movement. Why? If you go to governments and you say to a government, I want you to expand the carbon-free energy, solar panels, wind energy, they will say, yeah, we're working on this, Malcolm, but this will continue for the next 30 years. Now, energy companies, see, I'm already calling them energy companies. So AI companies, they can't wait for the next 15 to 20 years. They will just do it themselves. So inherently, tech companies are becoming the biggest pusher for production of carbon-free energy. Okay, I had to even open this on Google because this is a new word for me. So this word is called bifurcation. Bifurcation is like, it's written there, splitting into two branches. So what's splitting into two branches? Well, what we're seeing is the bifurcation of the grid. So when I used to live in Africa, we lived in so-called gated communities. What's a gated community? It's just like a normal place where you have a home, which is maybe a bit nicer, etc. But your rent is like 10 times more than if you would live elsewhere. Why? Because if the energy, for example, stopped working, we had our own energy. If the water didn't work for a couple of days, which happens sometimes in these countries, you have your own water. You have your own security. It's a society on paper which is very, very unfair because it is a very divided society. And now we're hearing or we're seeing the birth of the tale of two grids. The old grid, like we were saying, I know I'm repeating myself, but we have the old grid, congested, regulated, nothing moves. Oh, you want new stuff? You get it in 10 years. And the tech grid, they don't care. They're private and they have a lot of money. They will buy energy companies like hell, or they will build their own energy companies overnight. And the public sector cannot do that. A government cannot just put in their budget, next year we're going to spend 10 billion on building energy. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like this. First of all, because all the public companies, every government in the world is indebted, first of all. And tech companies, they're making billions of profits. So tech companies are building the gated communities of electric supply. Isn't this very, very interesting? Isn't this cool that this verticalization from energy into tech companies is building a two-society model on energy? And again, who is left behind? Who needs to fit the bill? Well, they will fit part of the bill, but the rest, citizens will fit it. You will fit it. Why me? Well, because when you build, for example, a data center somewhere that has access to roads, so there are roads leading to this data center, there's lots of, there's some infrastructure, there are lots of things. Now you could say, well, it's okay, Malcolm, because what's happening is it's creating jobs. But no, it's not. If you look at a normal factory of the size of a data center, I'm sorry, there's a snow, it snowed here like 10, 15 centimeters. And there are these snow machines that take away the snow. I don't know how they're called in your country. And I think this guy is going wild outside. But I don't want to stand up and close the window now. Okay, let's continue. So I was saying data centers, to run a data center, the size of a data center, there might be, hundreds of people working in a place like that under normal circumstances. But to run a data center, you don't need many people. You need maybe, 100 people. You need a bit of security, a few IT guys, a few people who know how to set up things when it breaks, and that's it. So what are you having? So essentially you're having fewer jobs around where data centers are. You're having higher bills because it chews up electricity. Only part of the electricity will come from their own grid. In the moment they're using the public grid, right? And this is leading to higher bills for everybody. And as the title of this episode says, who's responsible for this? You, my friends, are responsible for this because you guys love AI and you use a lot of AI. So today I'm drinking Monster. Don't drink Monster. Monster is like drinking 3 Red Bulls. Okay, now what does this mean for us business leaders? Because on paper you could say, that's not really my problem. Well, it is your problem because it's going to lead to a lot of problems for you. So let's look at this a bit. We can see electricity costs will rise. And we know this for production industry, so we work with production companies. Rising electricity and heating costs are always a problem. Now, kind of a bit less, but now they need to budget for higher costs due to cloud. Because when you now plan your cloud budget, you must factor in significant and volatile energy prices, which will come through AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Not around you, but these big tech companies will have higher energy costs and they will obviously pass it on to you. So budget for, hopefully you're doing your 2026 budget, not now, you did it last year, but if you're doing your 2026 budget, then please budget for higher cloud costs, not only because you use more cloud. Second one, we're talking about the diversity cloud geography. Obviously, it's not something that you can really do. There's not something that you can really do here. What some companies do is that they will have a multi-cloud approach. I'm not saying you need to, banks do that, insurances do that. For normal companies, it's not worth it. Like they will have the AWS cloud, they will have Azure with Microsoft, and they will have an Alibaba cloud for some other use cases. But by doing this, by geographically distributing your cloud usage, what you're going to do is you're going to create a sort of energy arbitrage. You will be placing different workloads of energy in different countries of the world, and that will hopefully help you long-term to reduce any energy exposure. And the last one is, we now maybe collectively as a human race need to start thinking of how can we use AI a bit more efficient. I mean, we know that there are many, many ways. And to be honest, anybody listening to this podcast, I believe very strongly, will listen to it and then continue using it the same way you want. Why? Because all of us want to use these frontier models. We want to use Claude, we want to use Gemini, we want to use ChatGPT. They're just so good, they're so fast, they understand us, they're awesome. Now, if you, for example, use small language models that you can run on your laptop, for example, then you're not always activating a cloud when you want to have an answer. So there are ways, and now it's not going to come now. This will maybe come as an ESG metrics in the next 5 to 10 years, that companies will get an AI usage ESG metrics in their ESG report. Now it's a bit too early. Top 3 things to remember from today. The first one is this AI tax. Even though it doesn't have a name now, you're already paying for it. You are already paying for the AI tax in form of exponential energy demand. The second one is this digital revolution. I don't think that many people have really understood that we are on the cusp. Is it called the cusp when you're at the beginning of something? We are at the beginning of a second industrial revolution in terms of energy need. We probably have never seen such. We've seen post-war energy, for example, go up because companies are starting to grow again. I mean, countries, okay? Or we've seen developing nations mutate. So there was obviously an energy need, but maybe not at such a big global scale and at such a fast pace. And limiting factors now are not the tech companies because they have money. Limiting factors are the public grid, the megawatts that we have now, the gigawatts, the transmission lines, water, even water. And the third one is, that's very interesting, and actually I really like this development, I find it fascinating. We now know that big tech is becoming big energy, and not something that you are going to benefit from, but they're building a private parallel energy system and private parallel society. Because now the cloud, we've got stuff in the cloud. It's not anymore an abstract concept. The cloud or the usage of the cloud will result in a higher energy bill for you. And now I'm going to talk to my Swiss neighbors. I was talking to a buddy of mine. He lives in Canton XX. You just need to Google it. And he said, Malcolm, I'm so happy. We're so advanced. I'm like, wow, what's happening? That was a few weeks ago. Yeah, they're building a data center close to where I live. And he felt like he's becoming an AI guru because of that. And now, in retrospective, thinking about this, I'm like, bro, you should be seriously concerned about your electricity bill. So yeah, everybody, that's it. Have a most wonderful, energetic day. Take care for now. Malcolm out.